Today is Tuesday, June 10th. We're talking about the White House doubling the number of National Guard troops deployed to the protests in Los Angeles, while also sending hundreds of Marines. Also, why RFK Jr. says he's getting rid of a panel of independent vaccine advisors to the CDC. And why some companies are promising to pay you extra when you have a baby. Plus, how some grocery stores are being impacted by a cyber attack. Remembering a music legend who broke barriers. And the new Apple features coming to your devices. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, President Trump has deployed 2,000 more National Guard troops to Los Angeles in addition to the 2,000 authorized over the weekend. And that's on top of 700 U.S. Marines the Trump administration has also now deployed to L.A. The U.S. military says the Marines will protect federal property and personnel. All of this is part of what the White House is calling a crackdown on lawlessness following days of protests and blaming state and local officials for allowing it to fester. Remember, the protests in and around L.A. started as demonstrations against ICE raids in the area, but they grew into broader and sometimes more violent pushback against Trump's immigration policies and deployment of troops. While LA's mayor condemned violence, she emphasized that it was isolated, not citywide civil unrest. California Governor Gavin Newsom called the deployment of Marines an unnecessary provocation, meant to sow fear and further divide. Federal law typically bars active duty forces from domestic law enforcement unless the president invokes the rarely used Insurrection Act, which Trump has not done, though Trump has called protesters and rioters insurrectionists. For now, California has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, looking to block the order that sent National Guard troops to the city without the state's request or approval. Trump called Newsom incompetent and egged on his border czar to arrest the governor, which Newsom called a step toward authoritarianism. After hours of mostly peaceful protests during the day yesterday, there were some tense clashes between demonstrators and law enforcement again last night, though overall it was reported to be smaller and quieter than Sunday night. Meanwhile, protests have also popped up in other cities like San Francisco, Sacramento, New York, and more in solidarity with Los Angeles. To be continued. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he's dismissing all 17 members of a crucial federal vaccine advisory panel. Kennedy called it a clean sweep, saying it's needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. But critics argue the move could do the opposite, fueling even more distrust in the government's vaccine policies and making future recommendations more politicized. The panel he dismissed is an independent group that reviews scientific data and makes vaccine recommendations for the CDC. If the CDC then signs off, those guidelines determine who should get which vaccines, whether insurance should cover them, and more. Kennedy claimed the panel has been plagued by conflicts of interest and described it as a rubber stamp for new vaccines, though the panel is already required to follow strict conflict of interest rules. It's still unclear who will be appointed to replace this outgoing panel of advisors, but a new group is expected to run the next advisors meeting, which is scheduled for later this month. The director of the National Institutes of Health is set to face senators today, as his own employees issue a rare and scathing rebuke. More than 60 NIH employees signed their names to a public letter that accuses their boss and the Trump administration of undermining science and medical research by withholding funding, censoring research, and endangering participants in clinical trials. It claims the NIH has abruptly halted or delayed funding for thousands of research projects without input from scientific staff, and says certain studies have been politically targeted. The employees acknowledged to reporters they could be fired for speaking out, but said the risks of staying quiet and going along with orders they see as unethical and in some cases illegal are too great. NIH Director Jay Badacharia, a Trump pick who rose to prominence for opposing COVID lockdowns, responded by saying the letter included fundamental misconceptions, but added that respectful dissent in science is productive. At today's Senate hearing, he's expected to face questions about an $18 billion proposed budget cut, nearly 40% of NIH's funding. President Trump hosted a roundtable at the White House yesterday to promote what's being called Trump Accounts, a plan to give every American newborn a $1,000 investment account. It's part of the larger Republican-backed Big Beautiful Bill that's still making its way through Congress. But if passed, it would launch a pilot program for kids born between the start of 2025 and the end of 2028. The money would be invested in a tax-deferred index fund managed by a child's guardian, with the option to contribute up to $5,000 more each year. At the event, executives from Dell, Uber, Goldman Sachs, and other companies pledged to contribute to employees' children's accounts. Dell's CEO even promised to match the government's contribution for every child born to a Dell employee. For now, though, the program is just one piece of a controversial policy package that also includes major tax cuts, changes to welfare programs, and other highly debated policies still being negotiated in the Senate. All right, we have much more news for you still ahead in just a moment. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsor, Hiya Health. One easy way that I've found to make sure my kiddo is getting the nutrition he needs is with Hiya's children's vitamins. In fact, even before they became a sponsor, I was giving my son their best-selling children's vitamins and the Hiya probiotics already. Why? Well, most children's vitamins seem basically like candy in disguise, but not Hiya. Hiya has 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. They're instead pediatrician-approved chewables that my son seriously looks forward to having every morning. Plus, I appreciate that every single batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and microbials in a qualified GMP-compliant lab using scientifically validated testing methods. Oh, and if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods. It's a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Yeah, half off. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website, so go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, hiyahealth.com/newsworthy, and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to the news. Changes are coming to Apple devices, including what some are calling the company's biggest software design update in more than a decade. At its Worldwide Developers Conference, Apple unveiled a new liquid glass look, adding more transparency to buttons, sliders, text, and other visual elements. Apple is also expanding its AI features, including live language translation during messages and calls. And for Apple Watch users, a new AI-powered workout buddy promises to offer personalized encouragement and training tips. Though some tech experts say Apple's AI tools are still a step behind its big tech rivals. Other updates include the ability to take photos by tapping your AirPods and a brand new Games app for quicker access to favorites. The next operating system is called iOS 26. It will deliver many of these features. And you might notice Apple is now aligning the software update's name with the year after they're released instead of the version number. So now it's iOS 26. The update is expected to roll out to all users this fall. Whimo's driverless cars have become an unlikely target in the Los Angeles protests, so now the company has temporarily restricted where the cars can go. Several of the electric robo-taxis owned by Google's parent company Alphabet were graffitied, vandalized, and set on fire over the weekend. It's not clear if the vehicles were summoned to protest zones through its app or already there, but either way, some were tagged with protest slogans and torched. Safety officials warn electric vehicle fires can burn hotter and longer than traditional car fires and sometimes reignite hours later. The Whimo self-driving cars are currently blocked from going to downtown Los Angeles, and reports say cars have not been available even in some areas outside the protest zones, like around USC. The company has also started limiting rides to areas of San Francisco, where people were also expected to gather to protest President Trump's immigration policies. Whimo has not said how much damage was done to its LA fleet, but each vehicle on the road is estimated to cost between $100,000 and $200,000. One of the largest grocery distributors in North America and the primary supplier for Whole Foods has been hit by a cyber attack. United Natural Foods says it discovered unauthorized activity in its systems late last week and has now taken parts of its systems offline proactively as it investigates what happened. The company delivers to more than 30,000 grocery stores across the U.S. and Canada and says the incident is causing temporary disruptions to its business. Customers are apparently starting to notice. Some Whole Foods shoppers have posted online about empty shelves or unusually small deliveries. So far, Whole Foods itself, which is owned by Amazon, has not commented. Law enforcement is now involved in the investigation. Music legend Sly Stone has died. The iconic frontman of Sly and the Family Stone passed away yesterday in Los Angeles after a battle with lung disease. He was 82. Stone was known for fusing rock, funk, soul, and gospel into some of the most influential music of the 60s and 70s, including hits like Everyday People and Dance to the Music. He also broke barriers, leading a racially integrated band with women playing instruments on stage, which is a rarity at the time. His performance at Woodstock in 1969 is still considered one of the most memorable of the legendary festival. Sly Stone struggled with drug addiction and retreated from the spotlight in his later years, but was honored with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017. His family says they take solace knowing his extraordinary musical legacy will continue to inspire for generations to come. A federal judge has dismissed the $400 million lawsuit filed by actor and director Justin Baldoni against his former co-star Blake Lively, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and Lively's publicist. Remember, Baldoni had accused them of civil extortion and defamation after Lively filed a sexual harassment complaint against him last year, claims he's denied. The judge also threw out a separate defamation lawsuit Baldoni filed against the New York Times, which first reported on Lively's complaint. In statements, Lively's legal team called the ruling a, quote, total victory. The New York Times said the decision protects legitimate journalism. Baldoni's team has until later this month to amend parts of the claim. Microsoft is officially jumping into handheld gaming. The company just unveiled its first ever portable Xbox console with two versions called the ROG Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally X. They're designed to let you play Xbox and PC games on the go. The handheld is set to launch this holiday season and will debut with games like Roblox, which will be the first time the popular game has ever been available on handheld. Microsoft hopes this gives them a new edge against rivals like Nintendo's Switch and Steam Deck. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor, Honeylove. When I wear anything from Honeylove, I can instantly tell so much thought went into every aspect of the piece, from the feel to the function to the fashion. And for this summer, it's great to know they have lightweight, breathable options that offer support, style, and comfort. It came as no surprise for me to learn that Honeylove is an independent, female-founded brand that is intelligently designed by women who actually wear the products. Honeylove shapewear, for example, it's designed to move with you. No more pulling it down or up anytime you walk around. And if you've been listening for a while now, you also know that I adore Honeylove's leggings and loungewear. Treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras, shapewear, and leggings on earth, and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off honeylove.com/newsworthy. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras and more with Honeylove. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. And today's trivia question is, what popular drink was invented by a circus clown? Listen again next Tuesday for the answer and explanation. As for last week's trivia question, what's underneath the U.S. Capitol? The answer is the crypt. No one is actually buried there, though there was originally a plan to house the remains of George Washington beneath the crypt, but his will said he wanted to be buried at his home at Mount Vernon, so his family honored that wish. Still, this vaulted space beneath the rotunda has long been called the crypt because it resembles similar areas in churches, which were often used for chapels and tombs. It has 40 Doric columns supporting the rotunda above, installed in the 1820s. The crypt is home to 13 statues, one for each of the original colonies, plus a replica of the Magna Carta. And right in the center of the floor of the crypt, a white marble compass stone, marking the exact center of the U.S. Capitol, and the spot where Washington, D.C. is divided into 4 quadrants: northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest. So while it's not actually a tomb, the crypt is still full of history, symbolism, and structural importance, right below one of America's most iconic buildings. Well, thank you so much for joining us to get caught up on the news today. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news to know. Until then, have a great day.